Apple's two latest models of the Mac Mini, the M1 and the M2, are packed with the latest technology and capabilities. But how do they compare against each other? If you're considering either one as your next purchase, you might have some questions about their performance, cost, hardware specs, and more. Well, in this video, we will take a deep dive into both models to see which one will give you the most bang for your buck. We will explore their differences in performance, design choices, pricing options, ports, in short, everything you need to make an informed decision about which Mac Mini is right for you. Now, enough with all the jibber-jabber, let's get started. When it comes to design, the Apple Mac Mini M1 is just as impressive as it has been in years past. Its body is made of aluminum, almost 20 centimeters square and 3.6 centimeters thick. In this mini format, it can fit on any desk with minimal bulk or even sit behind a monitor. You will love the fact that it can fit into your backpack thanks to its feather weight of 1.2 kilograms, something we didn't fail to do when testing it in our office. However, you should not rely on the Mac Mini M1 to listen to music, because the built-in speaker is not great. For music, we recommend that you use headphones or speakers that you can connect to its 3.5mm headphone jack. When it comes to the design of the Mac Mini M2, it is strictly identical to that of the M1 released in 2020, which was itself a twin of the 2018 version. We cannot really blame the manufacturer for not changing the design so close to perfection. Despite the use of the fan, these Mac Minis are particularly quiet. Even when running two video editing programs simultaneously on the CPU and GPU cores, it only emits a whisper. When it comes to the Mac Mini M1, we're dealing with improved connectivity compared to the previous version. At the back, we find the Gigabit Ethernet port, the two Thunderbolt 3 and USB 4 ports, and the two USB-A ports. Local network connection is via a Gigabit Ethernet port with the added option of upgrading to 10 GB like the Intel model. And the wireless connection is via Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5. One of the advantages of the Mac Mini is the possibility of associating it with any display. Indeed, the Mac Mini M1 mini range has an HDMI 2 socket, so that allows you to connect an external display with a resolution of up to 4K in 60p. This should be enough for most users, but the Mac can also handle a second display connected in Thunderbolt 3 or USB-C with a resolution of up to 6K in 30p. As far as the Mac Mini M2 is concerned, the connectivity is identical to that of the M1 version of the Mac Mini, but with some improvements in terms of standards. There are two Thunderbolt 4 ports, two USB 3.1 Gen 2 ports, and an HDMI 2 port on the back that can deliver 4K 60Hz to a compatible display. The Mac Mini M2 can also support up to two displays at 6K 60Hz on the Thunderbolt ports and 4K 60Hz on the HDMI port. Before we get into performance in this Mac Mini, we want to tell you that Apple has really made a mark on the industry integrating the new M chips in the MacBook Pro and the MacBook Air. The Mac Mini M1 is equipped with the Apple Silicon M1 chip. This is actually a so-called System on a Chip, aka SoC, that includes the 8-core CPU, the 8-core GPU, the memory, and the 16-core neural engine. As far as the Mac Mini M2 is concerned, we have a faster 8-core CPU to handle our daily tasks, 10-core GPU for applications and games with sophisticated graphics, and a 16-core neural engine as the M1 chip. As you all noticed, the Mac Mini M1 and M2 don't have a dedicated graphics card, but they do offer two great interesting chips for the creative people. Their 8-core and 10-core GPUs perform graphics calculations. The cherry on top here is their 16-core neural engine. It performs machine learning tasks such as AI-assisted image processing in software like Pixelmator and speech recognition or video analysis in Final Cut Pro X. Let's stop the suspense right away. The Mac Mini M1 and M2 are fast. Like really fast. You can feel it as soon as you press the power button, and in just a few seconds, you're ready to go. Then, you really get the feeling that all windows open faster, and even the web page is also loaded faster in your browser. This is related to the architecture of the Apple Silicon M chips. In this performance comparison, we will use the standard base mode of the Mac Mini equipped with the Apple M1 chip, 8GB of RAM, and 256GB of flash storage. This is the cheapest Mac Mini M1 that you can get. We will also compare it with the Mac Mini M2, which features the Apple Silicon M2 chip, obviously, 8GB of RAM, and an SSD of 256GB. In terms of the performance of the chips, the M1's CPU is up to 3 times faster, and the GPU up to 6 times faster than the previous generation under Intel. However, the M2 offers 21% more processing power compared to the M1 version. So how does this number affect the Mac? Well, according to some benchmarks, the Mac Mini M2 gets a performance index of 120, which is 21% more than the Mac Mini M1. If we were to take things further by comparing them with some PCs equipped with AMD and Intel chips, the Mac Mini M2 offers slightly better performance than the AMD Ryzen 7 6800U present in the Acer Swift 14 laptop. Moreover, according to Cinebench R23 benchmark, the Mac Mini M1 records 1,521 points in a single core and 7,811 points in a multi-core, while the Mac Mini M2 has a score of 1,633 points in single core, but the gain is more important on multi-core applications. It means in single core, the Mac Mini 2 is more than 8% better than the Mac Mini M1. But when we compare the Mac Mini M1 to its predecessor, you will be happy to know that in single core, the Mac Mini M1 is 19.7% faster than the Core i3 Mac Mini, which was released in 2018. And if we dive into the multi-core performance, the gap gets bigger, as the Geekbench multi-core score is 57.6% higher for the M1. When it comes to the graphics processing power, we decided to test the performance of the Mac Mini M1 by using the image editing tool called Pixelmator Pro. It has an ML super resolution function that increases the definition of your images while maintaining the sharpness and the details with the help of artificial intelligence. Thanks to the 16-core neural engine of the Mac Mini M1, M2 as well, you can enlarge an image and generate the missing details in just a few seconds. It will take minutes to perform the same operation on an Intel-based Mac Mini. Now, when it comes to software that are not designed for M chips, but which can run them thanks to the Rosetta 2 emulator, we timed the PC when exporting 100 RAW files of 55 megabytes each in Lightroom Classic, and the results were astonishing. Lightroom Classic completed the task in just 3 minutes and 8 seconds. In video editing, the Mac Mini also does very well. You can edit 4K video streams without frame drop thanks to its hardware encoder that handles with ease H.264 and H.265 codec. It only took 6 minutes and 42 seconds to export a 10-minute 4K 30fps video with Adobe Premiere Pro. The Mac Mini M1 is therefore a great workstation for amateur or semi-pro video and photo editing tasks. With it, you will be able to edit 4K or even 6K video streams without slowdown of any kind. As far as the Mac Mini M2 is concerned, we're not so happy with the video editing performance. Indeed, basic graphic operations like placing the elements on the timeline or making cuts are done without a hitch on Premiere Pro. But, on the other hand, the performance drops as soon as the video gets longer and the elements on the timeline become more numerous, and even when shots are being superimposed. And of course, the situation gets worse when you start playing with the effects and when you do some color grading. The worst of all is when you add animations. It is true that Premiere Pro is not the ultimate option in video editing, so we continued the tests in DaVinci Resolve and Final Cut Pro. On basic operations, Final Cut Pro and DaVinci are able to do the job perfectly like it was the case in Premiere Pro. However, the situation becomes less beautiful when effects and animations are added. In just a few short minutes, the Mac Mini M2 reaches its limits. This is certainly due to the fact that the Mac Mini M2 is equipped with a single 256GB storage chip, while the Mac Mini M1 had two 128GB flash chips, providing higher speeds. The same is true of the 512GB Mac Mini M2. Again, equipped with a single chip, its performance will be less good than a model with two. When it comes to gaming, we all know that Macs are not the ultimate option, but you can still use the Mac Mini M1 and M2 to play some games. In Civilization VI, the Mac Mini M1 can reach a respectable 31.5 FPS at 1080p, while the Mac Mini M2 moves to 45 FPS. And in Borderlands 2, the Mini 1 can reach 45 FPS with the highest presets at 1080p. However, we were way more impressed with the performance of the Mac Mini M2 in AAA games like The Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Indeed, the Mac Mini M2 reaches 23 FPS in Full HD with the very high preset, while the Mac Mini M1 didn't exceed 6 FPS. In Metro Exodus, the Mac Mini M2 can also reach a good 30 FPS at 1440p on low detail settings. So, by reducing the settings very slightly, it is possible to play AAA games with the Mac Mini M2. The pricing and the verdicts. In our opinion, the Mac Mini M1 and M2 are both excellent workstations for amateur or semi-pro video and photo editing tasks. They are excellent for photographers who want to renew their old Mac and who already have high-quality graphics display. When it comes to pricing, the standard version of the Mac Mini M2, equipped with 8GB of RAM and an SSD of 256GB, is sold at $599, while the 2020 version of the Mac Mini M1 had a starting price of $699. Therefore, you don't need to have Elon Musk's IQ to know that the new 2023 Mac Mini M2 is the best option. It just offers the best value for the money.